Kaspar, new week, busy week, a lot of news about inflation. Does this inflation ghost really exist? What do you think?
I try to give some inside information about that later on.
I'm curious about that. Let's see. Okay, but first, what happened? Busy week, a lot of news about inflation, which you're going to talk about in depth a little bit further on. What I've found interesting was the fact that Elon Musk found out that mining cryptocurrencies is not as good for the environment as he initially thought, and directly the Bitcoin price went down with $10,000. So we see this is not a normal investment that it can drop that quickly on a day and bounce back that quickly as well. Spain, they announced they have a lot of trouble to get their budgets organized. In general, they have an estimate to spend about, or an obligation to spend 7% on healthcare, and for this year they will only make it up to 6.2%, and they said that it will take up to 2050 to be able to meet up with the 7% requirement. So Spain is suffering, and what we talk about a lot.
But the healthcare sector is quite good. My personal experience in Spain.
It is okay, but for instance, there's a lot of. It is okay for the basic needs, but if you talk about psychology, for instance, it's one of the biggest problems in Spain, and it's hidden away. There's one psychologist on every, I think, 100,000 or 50.
Really?
Yeah. That's it. So
okay.
So it's more like the
basics.
Yeah, the basics, and also if you have something like, I don't know, you need a specialist. You have an appointment now. It's May. Maybe in September.
Yeah.
If you have to go to a dermatologist, you have something.
If you don't have a private insurance.
If you don't have private insurance, so that is the problem.
Okay, understand. Thanks. Yeah, the jobless claims.
Yeah.
The new jobs. They last week they were expecting like 1 million people back to work, new jobs, and it was only 266,000, and that was a big surprise. Yeah, that's also not a good sign of the economy.
No, I did read in the report of the Deutsche Bank. They said that they manipulated the figures in that sense, that they took out all the temporarily, the seasonal labor out of that real figure. So
yeah,
you should do that always.
Yeah, you're not comparing apple with apples. Then.
Apple,
I'm going to talk about that also, about comparing things in the right way. Yeah, BMW Adidas, good figures. Today, Friday, Disney came with the figures. Of course, still suffering from the pandemic, the theme parks. Yeah. So everybody is looking at Disney Plus, the online streaming service, always comparing with Netflix. In March, they were really happy with it, investors, because they crossed a really faster than expected 100 million subscribers. They were expecting now 109 million, but it was only 103.5 million. I think it's still a lot. And it's still a growth, but the market thinks in a different way because they expected more. Alibaba had also good figures, but bottom line, so more revenues, but bottom line a loss because of the big fine they got from the Chinese regulator.
You saw that on the entire market, all the big techs.
Yeah, especially this morning. Yeah, but on the other hand, everybody knew already about the fine, so I don't understand that completely.
It's not the logic.
No. So what happened is, I think, we're going to discuss also what's hot. What did you first?
Okay, me first. I picked out a company which I read an interesting article about. It's Square, and a lot of people know this company but might not be invested in. So what are they doing? They provide merchants, small businesses with analytics for their business, obviously, but also payment devices and smaller loans. And they process 33.1 billion in payment volume. That's called gross payment value, GPV, also called for the insiders. That's 29% more than the last period, the same period, so quarter, and 5 times more than they were basically generating in 2012. The company is growing on an average with 49% on a yearly basis. A lot of larger companies are coming on board, and for them a larger company is a company that processes $125,000 on a monthly basis in GPV. So and that means that by the fact that there's larger companies coming on board, more volume will be generated, on which they have a little bit.
Did you read it in Monthly Fu?
I think on Market Watch.
Okay, because Monthly Fu are also really positive about it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things they have a specific peer-to-peer payment. I asked you yesterday, what peer-to-peer is, so it's direct platform, and it's called Cash.
I got the right answer, no?
Yeah, Cash App, and they had 36 million active users, and on average, they create a revenue of $41, and it only costs Square $5 to attract those new clients. So that's really good. And they're also starting to generate more and more, and we all know how popular cryptocurrencies are at the moment from the crypto business. So a lot of growth there. Another quick question that I want to touch about is the dividend aristocrats. People ask me many times, what is a dividend aristocrats? I won't go too much in depth, but what it is, it's a company that's been paying dividends during a period of a minimum of 25 years and also been increasing the dividend. There's not a guideline on how much dividend, so not a minimum of 3%. So you can also say, okay, they've been paying 1 cent and the next year 1.1 cent, etc., but at least during a period of 25 years, you've been paying dividend and been increasing your dividend.
Every year increasing.
Every year increasing.
Oh, wow.
And then the top 8 of the dividend aristocrat index are companies that have been doing that, actually all of them, for 57 consecutive years. And one company that we all know is Coca-Cola. It's one of them. So interesting, I think, to follow. They are, in general, and that's not my opinion, but it's just a fact, they are good investments as long as you keep them for the longer run. People reward them for the dividend risk, reward them for their loyalty of paying the dividend back out to you as an investor. So interesting, I think, to have a look at as a part of your portfolio, specific part.
Inflation. It was all about inflation in the US.
Yeah.
First of all, because in the Netherlands there were also inflation figures of 1.9%, exact the same as the year before, the month before. So it's all about the year. I want to go one step back, because inflation is based on the increasement of prices of a certain basket, and it's the consumer price index. You have alternative baskets, but that's the one that's used the most.
Yeah.
And I want to do, in my step back, I want to say, okay, how is the weight within that basket? Because it's a weight. It's not, everything is not considered the same. So food, for example, is 14%, 1.4, energy 9.3, commodities, less food and energy 19%, and everything to do with shelter 32%. So and you said about comparing, or I took the conclusion that you should always compare apples with apples, and that's especially in the US, the weight differs a lot. So if you see a chart nowadays in the newspapers, on television, about the inflation figures of the last 50 years, you should be aware that the components and the weight was completely different
than now.
The different 20 years ago to now. So the comparison is difficult. Powell, he spoke about it. He said, "Okay, I think it's just a short inflation increment because of the reopening of the markets." He gave an example also that the lumber of a house, so a lot of houses in the US are made of wood, and if you build an average house now compared to a year ago, the price you spend on the lumber is $36,000 more. So there is a lot of increasement in it. Another example, it's based on the figures of April, is that the used cars sales, prices of the used car sales jumped with 10% in April, and that jump is accounting for more than 1/3 of the monthly increasement.
Wow. So yeah, that basically makes the figure.
Yeah. So if you think that the next how many months do we still have? 7 months.
7 months. Yeah.
That the car prices for second hand will increase, then indeed the inflation will go up. And I think this example for the second-hand cars is really a good explanation for it, because there are a lot of car dealers were closed. Online you can buy new cars, but not more difficult with second-hand cars. So now people wanted to buy new cars, so they now go to the shop. So more demand, and then the prices will go up.
Do you know anything about? I mean, I was talking about it the other day on Sunday morning. I had breakfast with some friends, and that in Spain all the beneficial programs and stuff like that to stimulate buying new cars, you have to give all that money back, you know. And then at the same time, I mentioned this week that in line with this, the average car here in Andalusia is 13 years old. So the car park.
Yeah, you told me that. Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing. I'm curious what's going to happen with that.
Yeah.
Because that will be needed to be renewal.
Yeah. For example, the food prices went down.
Food prices.
Yeah, in April. The inflation in April 2020 was 0.3%, and on a monthly basis,
due to COVID.
Yeah, and on a monthly basis, the inflation went up with 0.8%, so from March to April. But that's the biggest increasement since 1996. So there is something going on, That's a fact. On a yearly basis, it's a 4.2% more than expected. But what are the drivers? Now, the drivers are the wood and especially second-hand cars.
And oil?
Oil also. Yeah. Of course, oil. I have here all kind of figures that are comparisons.
Maybe we can. Sure.
Yeah, we will share it. And another thing is that house prices went up, but if you look at the basket of the shelter, the part of the shelter in the basket, normally there is a delay of 1 to 1.5 years with pricing of renting a house. Because you buy a house now, you buy another house tomorrow, so the prices go up directly. The market adapted it faster, but normally you adapt the renting price only on a yearly basis. So that's the driver that will go up. I think personally that the prices of increasement of 10% of second-hand cars won't go up every month with 10%, but I do, based on the historical aspects, that the prices of the renting houses will go up. So that's a driver up. So we are now in a time of reflation. That means that there is a lot of money put in the market to stimulate the economy. If we look at some important commodities, because commodities are
soft commodities.
Yeah, are drivers for inflation. Coffee went down 4%, grain 7%, maize 12%, oil 3%, wood 15%, and pulp, so the leftovers from wood, carton, paper 30%.
Not a good week for commodities.
No, but this is for the inflation figure.
For next week, you mean?
No, for the upcoming inflation figures. This is already a pressure on the market.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, exactly.
So I hope that I give you a little bit more insight in inflation, how it works, and what are the most characteristics on it. What is the weight between the baskets? So then you can make your own conclusion based on that information.
Absolutely.
What's next?
Read an interesting article about value stocks. They've been underperforming over the last year. And there's 3 interesting ETFs, basically the main drivers. It's the RZV, the RFV, and the IVOV. We'll put them in the screen for you if you want to look them up. Those are the ticker codes. You can tick them in the platform and you can read it. Those are the main ETFs if you want to participate in the value stock market. We have Ryanair presenting their figures. We have the jobless claims again on Thursday, and also the existing home sales in the US on Friday. So that gives us a bit of an indication on also on the wood price.
Not that many quarterly figures anymore.
Well, there's loads of them still.
Yeah, but not
the most
important.
No. So that's at the end of the period.
Thank you for watching, and hope to see you next time. I think.